Hey guys, it's me. Welcome back to my channel. Been a while. Actually, it hasn't because I'm being consistent as fuck, have you noticed? Today I am going old school. I'm going to be reviewing a book, Red Rising by Piers Brown. Now, why Red Rising? I'm glad you asked. This is actually a reread. I read this for the first time, I think when it came out. I was about 15, 16, and I had just discovered BookTube, and this is what really got me into watching BookTube like it was my religion. So I read this 6 months later, I joined BookTube. So because I recently came back, I thought it would be fun to reread it and review it for you guys. Also, I tabbed it, used sticky notes, which by the way cost more than I've ever made on this channel. I mean, right now it's not too hard because I make nothing, but in the past these tabs cost more than I've ever fucking made. So if any of you want to give me donations to support this channel in the shape of post-it notes, highly appreciate it. I'm just kidding. Let's get on to the review. So what is fucking hell, I haven't gotten any better at this, have I? So what is Red Rising about? Can't take myself seriously. So Red Rising is a science fiction dystopian novel. Be very careful because it is not YA. I mean, this literally seems like it's marketed as YA when it's really not. So a lot of violence, a lot of gore, a lot of sexual stuff, I guess. So we live in a time where the other planets have been colonized and terraformed, and society is organized into a little bit of a brutal color-coded caste system, caste, I don't know how to pronounce that word, where the golds rule, and then you got loads of other colors. Golds are on the top, silvers a little bit lower, the whites, the greys, the greens, the blues, the pinks are the prostitutes, the reds are right at the bottom, and they're the miners. And our main character, Darrow, is one of those miners, like a helldiver, as he's referred to in the book, and we follow his story as he becomes the face of the revolution. The plot is extremely fast. It has a lot of twists and turns, especially for me because I'm not that bitch who will see a plot twist coming from like 10 miles away. I don't try to do that. I don't see the point. I'm very much oh wow, didn't see that one coming, because I just find it more enjoyable that way. So I don't actually read dystopian that much anymore, to be perfectly honest with you, because why would I? I mean, take a good hard look at the world we live in right now, please. I'm a Twitter scroll away from losing my faith in humanity, so I really don't see the point. But yeah, I think this one actually might get me back into the whole dystopian genre. So I did rate it down from a 5-star read to a 4-star read, but I will admit that the issues that I had with this book aren't really fair, to be honest. They had a lot more to do with my personal tastes as a reader rather than an objective rating of the book. Though some parts of it are just objectively bad, and we'll get into them. So yeah, even though I rated this down, I actually got a lot more out of it the second time I read it, which, you know, makes sense. My reading tastes, I mean, they've more rotted than matured. But I can say that I have developed more of a critical eye when it comes to literature, which, I mean, thank God. You'd think that I don't have the same reading tastes as I did when I was 15. I mean, it wasn't difficult to please 15-year-old chapter Barbara, I'll tell you that. I really shouldn't have read this at 15 though, to be honest. Thank God I was one tough cookie and I didn't lose any sleep over all the violence and sexual assault and just goriness, because this can easily scar a teenager, not gonna lie. I think that's why I kind of wanted to like it as well. I mean, I was really into the whole violence doesn't bother me. What? Did you know I watched Game of Thrones, by the way? There's a sex scene in there. Though to be fair, like when I reread this, like I just saw loads of things that when I was 15 just completely went over my head. And now I'm going to get into the actual review. Now I've given you a brief overview. I will try and keep it as spoiler free as possible because I genuinely think it's worth a read. If there is a major spoiler coming along, I will put a picture of the book here or somewhere on the screen so you can mute me, and when the picture goes away you can unmute me or just skip ahead. So let's talk about the writing first, shall we? So like a lot of aspects of this book, the writing was 97%, let's say 97% absolutely brilliant, genius, amazing, award-winning, whatever you want. Then 3% of it was straight up terrible. Literally no in between. You'll see what I mean. I will explain. Let's talk about the imagery first. The imagery for me was a hit. It was brilliant. Imagery is always so important to me because when I read, I see everything that I'm reading, if that makes sense. So if an author is describing a character or a room, I will see in full detail the appearance of that character or that room. So the fact that the imagery was so well made, the descriptions was so spot on that I could see everything so vividly, just had me hooked immediately. I'm actually not someone who has a problem with slower paced books. What hooks me is not the plot, it's usually the descriptions, so that I can really dive into the story. And this book did a really good job. At the beginning of the book, I just felt like I was in Lycos. I felt like I was at the Institute, and it was just like fantastic, really nothing else to add. World building, again, very closely related, I guess, was also excellent. Now this is sci-fi, so if you're one of those like sci-fi snobs who's got like your fucking degree in astrophysics and you're just like, oh, this isn't the weather you'd get on Mars, you moron, then yeah, you're not gonna like this. But if you don't really give a fuck about how realistic it is to have snow on Mars, then the world building is really good. The characters are also fantastic, but before I talk about all the other shit that I really loved, I'm going to talk about the aspects of the writing that I truly was not a fan of. So, like I said, the issues I have with this book are mainly my personal taste, what I like to read, so maybe it wasn't too fair for me to call it terrible, but also fuck you, I'll refer to it however I want. So, I'm someone who really always enjoys picking apart what I'm reading and trying to find some deep shit in it, even if there isn't. So, you know, that joke about finding meaning in the blue curtains when the author readed me. No, that's a meme. I will be the one to tell you what the blue curtains mean. And while Red Rising occasionally lets you do that to a certain extent, for example, when it comes to the political intricacies of it, then yeah, I guess so. When it comes to writing emotions, when it comes to the message, it's very much told rather than shown. Brown is a very talented author, but at the same time, he just tends to tell you straight up what's going on rather than slowly guide you to it or hint at it, which I thought was a real shame because I think he could have done it really well. I think my biggest problem was with the way he writes emotions. So I think the reason I'm so salty about this, by the way, is because he is like an excellent writer and I see so much wasted potential in there. There are some statements I just had problems with. So for example, the beginning of the book, we see statements as, I am anger, I am hatred. And short statements like that can be very powerful if they're properly set up, but without proper context, it really loses its power. So I'll give you an example too of what it could have been like. So we have the I am anger, I am hatred on page like, I don't know, like 10 or something. I don't know. It's a bit after that. I don't know. Just fucking find it yourself. So on page 91, I don't know what possessed me to use only red tabs, by the way. I can't fucking find anything. That night, I cry. It's short. It's simple. It's just as short and sweet as simple as I am anger, I am hatred. However, this was so well set up. This is gonna sound like a spoiler, but it's not. It's like literally the first few pages. We learned that our main character, Darrow, did not cry when his father died. He didn't really cry for much. He has never really shown a lot of emotion, so the fact that it would be there, just there, and so short, just really has an impact. And I think that this is a point where it was done very, very well, but the I am anger, I am hatred just sounds so over the top and over dramatic, and I really wasn't a fan of that. And it's a shame because I know that Piers Brown can convey emotions very, very well if he wants to, because in the page right after that, so he describes grief. So this is a spoiler, by the way. So what are scars? How little they matter. Io will not see them, so why should I care? She will not run her hand along my back. She will never kiss my wounds. This doesn't say I am so intensely sad that she is dead. This is expressing grief in another way. It's imagining a life without the person you love and who has passed away, and that is just brilliant. When I read this first statement of I do not react, I am anger, I am hatred, I understood what Darrow was feeling, but I didn't really feel much for him. However, when he describes his grief on the very next page, so good. I felt so sad. I felt it physically. Another passage that could have been good but wasn't was, my uncle takes me in a one-arm hug and kisses the crown of my head. It's all he can offer. he is not a man made for affection. As well, that could have been so good if we hadn't had the he is not a man made for affection, in my opinion. I think it would have been much more powerful for Brown to just like present this character of the uncle and then just have it up to it's all he can offer. Because then the reader will know. The reader will know what the uncle is like, and will see that this small gesture that doesn't seem like much actually means an enormous amount. You'll see throughout this book that there's a trend of Piers Brown thinking that his readers are fuckwits. I mean, true, but like, even me and my 2 brain cells can figure some shit out, you know? And by that I mean, like, right at the end of the book, he is asked, what drives you? And he says at first that his answer is rage, but actually it's not rage. It is love. But the deep spine answer is love. Love drives me, so I must lie a bit to him. We know. You don't, I figured it out. Even I figured it out. If I could figure it out, anyone else can, okay? So again, this is all my opinion. I know that Piers Brown wasn't writing this book being like, ooh, I'm sure Barbara's gonna love this. She doesn't fucking know I exist, right? I think generally it would have been a lot more impactful if he had just straight up said rage and we would have known he is lying, or maybe kind of alluded to the fact that it's a lie without just, am I making any sense? No, probably not. Welcome to quality content, everybody. If I had any advice whatsoever to give authors in general, if you are aiming to have me really enjoy your novel, it would be more of a show the reader what's going on, don't tell. Actions speak so much louder than words. There was also so much emphasis on Darrow being such a brilliant charismatic leader, which yes, he was, but it really didn't have to be repeated over and over again, because we saw what the other characters did for him, we saw the way they acted towards him, so the reader wouldn't have thought, I'm sure he's gonna get betrayed, because we know how charismatic he is. So this part of my everything, I believe in you, whatever, was just plain unnecessary. Actions speak louder than words. I'm sure you've heard that one. It applies to life and it applies to literature as well. Oh, also, the made up kind of language aspect, so slang, vocabulary enhancers, I guess you could say, of this book were just straight up hilarious to me. The vocabulary that he's created for this world sounds like it is the in-betweeners on crack. So we get stuff like wanking.
Weeks wanking 3 times a day. That's why he's knackered. Yeah.
Getting a hard on.
Oh, what's wrong? Did you get hard on because the pretty girl spoke to you?
What else? Bloody hell.
What the bloody fuck do you think you're doing?
Gory hell, okay, that's somewhat original, but just the rest of it, all the slang you can find in this book that Reds use, you can find in the fucking in-betweeners, I promise you. So I will end this segment on writing by telling you my favourite part of the writing and my least favourite. Okay, so there were a lot of passages that I really liked. Like, I have been trashing the writing. It was a lot more that was good than was bad. I'm just pointing out what I personally didn't like. So my favourite description was, it was like seeing a cat bark. So fucking clever. I know it's not the best quote, okay? Shut up. There's loads of more inspirational, fantastic quotes in there, but this one just like fucking got me, man. Like, I could see exactly what he meant, and that's something I would have never thought of myself. And my least favourite was page 354. The smiles they give one another are as chilling as the snow. Fuck right off. If you're new here, hi. I have a personal vendetta against something that is like black as coal, as chilling as the snow, as bitter as blood, or whatever. I don't fucking know. I don't know why these things piss me off so much. I think it's because they're very overused in the YA genre, and we all know how I feel about the YA genre. So let's talk about character development, because that was by far one of my favourite aspects of the book. Characters were fucking fantastic. My favourite characters, in case you're interested, were Severo, Cassius, and Quinn. Quinn was a very minor character, yet she was perfect, and that's what I mean when I think that the character development was done absolutely flawlessly, because really a lot of authors don't pay that much attention to making their side characters any good at all. However, Quinn was just brilliant. This whole story she made up about like killing the deer with her teeth, fucking brilliant. Maybe it was because I could relate to her, because I have a history of like trying to get people to believe stupid shit. But yeah, no, that was amazing. I loved Cassius as well, which I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion or not. And Severo, I think, is everybody's favourite. I've seen a lot of people bitching and complaining about the characters being teenagers and, you know, shrieking about how how that's not how kids act and they're acting like adults. That's just the stupidest criticism of this book that I've seen anyone make. The sad reality is that when kids are thrown into that type of environment, they're forced to mature much more quickly. You know, a lot of people are like, what do you mean they got married at 14 and 16? That's just not a... Dude, people got married at 14 in our countries not so long ago, and I feel like in some parts of the world that's the thing. You know, you bleed out of your vagina, that's it, you're ready to marry. So fuck off. It's also like everyone conveniently forgot that like Lord of the Flies exists, which, you know, this have a very similar vibe to the Lord of the Flies, but also they were all kids and they acted in ways that were absolutely horrendous. Darrow grows up seamlessly throughout this book because the book starts when he is around 16 years old, book ends when he's 18. It was done perfectly. It was done fucking perfectly. It was really like seeing somebody every day of their life and you don't notice the changes that much. And then you look at the picture of them from 2 years ago and you look at their picture today and you're like, oh wow, shit, you have changed actually. I also really liked the fact that Darrow did make mistakes but also learned a huge amount from his mistakes. Darrow is not a perfect character by any means, so I'll get into that in a second, but the development, the growing up he did, loved it, fucking masterpiece. The character relationships and dynamics in this book were also brilliant. The romantic ones as well as just the platonic ones. One of my favorite dynamics weirdly was the Mateo and Darrow dynamic. I thought they had a really good thing going on. Mateo was a very secondary character. We didn't see much of him and yet he was still really well developed and fleshed out. Really, I think that's part of the reason why I liked this book so much, because character development is a huge part of enjoying a book for me. So there is also this one part which really struck me. It was when the jackal sends one of his messengers to Cassius, and the messenger is this girl who is described to have laced teeth in her hair, and that is such a brilliant move. You don't need to say more, you know, she's laced fucking teeth in her hair. I mean, hello. I thought that was so good. It just gives you a very good idea of what kind of character this person is, and she may not appear ever again, but this character really struck me, so that is so well done on that one for sure. My favorite relationship was the one between Darrow and Cassius, platonic by the way, if anyone hasn't read the book. It was so unsettling, but at the same time it was so touching and heartbreaking. And when Cassius started referring to him and Severus as brothers, I just about lost it. Really loved Cassius as a character. I think that I liked Cassius because he's my type, but honestly there is nothing that I would like to see more than Darrow and Cassius moving past what happens and just renewing their bromance. But I think, you know, if you've read this book, you know that Pierce Brown just doesn't deliver on what the reader wants. He just gets your hopes up and then like fucking crushes them. So let's talk about Darrow for a second, okay? The main character. A very common complaint that I've seen is that he is this perfect hero guy and cookie cutter and annoying. I disagree. Look, the guy is supposed to lead a revolution. He can't have the charisma of a wet towel, okay? He does have a hero complex for sure, but it's a well-made hero complex. I think that we've all just been brainwashed by just bad characters where the hero complex is just overdone and just badly written, but in this case it really wasn't badly written at all. It just really made a lot of sense. You could see that's the way he was as a person, so I really do not have an issue with that. Though I've got to say, for someone who is just like who is so capable of outsmarting everyone, there was some moments where he was just straight up stupid. The span of fucking 10 pages, he falls in the same trap twice. Page 252 and 259. And like, I get it that it's supposed to show how much he cares about his friends, but at the same time, dude, you are capable of outsmarting the proctors. You are able to not only beat the players but beat the game, so shut the fuck up, that's not gonna happen to you. Like, sir, tell me how you fell for the same trick twice in the span of 10 pages. The only big criticism that I think is very valid about Darrow, which mute me for now if you don't want to be spoiled, so a major spoiler, but it is a spoiler, is that when he was carved into a gold, he was kind of unsettled by it for maybe 2 pages, and then he was just perfectly fine with it, which, being a red, is all he's ever known. And then he is just completely transformed into this new superior breed. And okay, he was obviously very damaged from the overtraining and from all the procedures, but you don't see this affecting him psychologically all that much. No, there's literally no way that this 16-year-old boy would look in the mirror, not recognize himself after all the procedures and be fine with it. I really feel like he recovered from that way too quickly. I also feel like he should suffer some form of PTSD after all of that. I hope we see that in the future books, because I have read Golden Sun, but I can't say I remember much of it, especially not minor psychological details like that. Yeah, so that is one big criticism I have of him. Also, two more things that are just really nitpicky, really insignificant, but they're still like pissing me off for some reason. Right, so this dude has literally not a page has gone by without this man witnessing some sort of corruption, some sort of propaganda, some sort of government fucking up. And then when Fitchner tells him that the game is rigged, he's just like, what? Really? But how? Also, there's one part in the book where he, you know, finds a horse who like kicks wolves to death, and like he picks him to be his horse and gives him this name and all that shit. Dude, last time you were near a horse, it was a pony and you were scared shitless, so what the fuck is up with that? Please, sir, don't pretend you got over your fear of horses. Okay, let's talk about Mustang for a second. I wasn't a fan of her. I didn't dislike her. She wasn't a character that I hated, but if she existed in real life, I don't think I'd be friends with her. Does that make sense? She just sounds like she's very perfect and would make me insecure. She's like pretty, funny, smart, and the first half of the entire book, her only character traits are being hot and smirking and mocking Darrow. Like, please give me something to work with here. Again, spoiler, the whole plot twist of her being related to the Jackal to me was just, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna pan out in the second book, but it's just unnecessary. Because look, now her and Darrow are like almost related, right? So that's a bit weird. But it feels like all this adds to the story is that if you become friends with Darrow, he's gonna screw over your brother in some way. Have you noticed this? Like, he tends to like screw up family members of people he likes. So fucking Julian got it, the Jackal got it, Severo's dad got, like, bitch, just don't become friends with Darrow if you care about your family members. And the final character that I'm going to be talking about is Io. I thought she was very well made, and thank God, because she is such a crucial part of the story. While she just appears at the beginning, she is so important, and she was very well written. She was presented as a 15 or 16-year-old girl, I'm not too sure, maybe 14, but quite young. And she was, you know, she's at that age where she's getting old enough to understand the injustices of the world. She's getting old enough to understand kind of what's going on, the political nitty-gritty of the story, basically. But she's a bit too young to understand really what she's asking of Darrow and how costly her dream might end up being. I also really liked the fact that she's constantly mentioned throughout this novel and she's not just like fucking forgotten about, because I can just think of like so many books where like a very important character just does something super important and they're only brought up when it's convenient. This doesn't do this. It's just like a huge amount of emphasis on Io. And again, sorry to keep bringing this up, but the fact that she's mentioned over and over again, we get that Darrow does everything for love and not rage. Like, it didn't have to be said. I'm sorry. This is just like, I find the one thing that pisses me off about a book and I just keep talking about it. Hi, welcome to my channel. So yeah, my overall thoughts on the book that I can give you without making it too spoilery, because, you know, in the past I have made extremely spoilery reviews, but it has been about books that I wouldn't really recommend. So it's just like, guys, I don't give a fuck if you get spoiled, because if you get spoiled it means that you didn't take my advice on not reading this book. But this one I think you guys should definitely read. I really recommend it, especially if you are kind of transitioning out of the YA phase and want to get into more kind of adult fiction. This is a good one because despite all the violence and kind of sexual abuse that happens in this book, it's very fast paced. It has a very YA rhythm to it, so I feel like it's very easy to get into. The ending was very good. It was also a very good setup to the next book, so I'm definitely excited to read Golden Sun. But yeah, I think that's it for today actually. Wow, damn. If you would like me to review Golden Sun, which is the next book of the series, let me know. If you're new here, Hi, my name is Barbara. I make very mediocre content, generally give my very uninteresting opinion on books and more recently politics. So if you want to stick around, you should subscribe and like the video and do all that shit, and like follow me on Instagram if you want to see more of this space and some updates. Follow me on Twitter if you don't want to hear from me for like 6 months and then just hear about me all day like at one random time. So yeah, that is it for today and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!